Open the meeting at 5:01 PM.
Second.
All in favor? Perfect.
Just you.
Oh, no, there's another one coming.
Oh, good.
That's good. Do we want to start with the meeting minutes?
Yeah, you should approve the minutes, I suppose.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second?
Oh.
All in favor?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
May I get a quick sound check from someone?
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear us?
It's not here.
Is it green?
Yep.
Can you not
Can't-
hear us?
1 second.
Get the big chair.
If you come early, you get to choose the good chair.
You want early?
Sometimes you're just lucky.
It's true.
Can you hear us now?
Well, I say we just keep going.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so I had talked to a resident last week, a new resident, and they wanted to come to the meeting and ask some questions. I do not see him here.
Okay.
You guys have any questions that don't pertain to anything we're gonna talk about?
Well, I think we'd want to talk to, that was supposed to be here, wants to talk about dirty water, right?
No?
No? But it's
Just-
a different resident then.
Um,
I'm here to find out why we're here.
I don't know, Dick, why are you here?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I don't know, Jane said there was a water meeting and,
I don't know, Jane, but,
That's-
Oh.
That's me.
Oh, okay.
Jane's a neighbor,
Okay.
that's her bad luck.
I know her as Mrs. Marino, but,
Yes.
Oh, that's my sister.
oh, that's, okay.
Oh, I wouldn't have guessed that. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
When you walked in, I went,
Well,
wow.
it's gonna be interesting, so just sit tight.
Okay. We had issues with our water back in the late 1970s. Groveland Water almost killed son number 4.
Uh-oh.
Kathy, trying to think of Kathy Lenz maybe was selectman, and she came down and knocked on the door one day, and she said, "You need to stop drinking Groveland water." My wife was nursing and drinking a lot of water like a good nursing mom should and usually does. So we stopped, and by the time we got Tim to the hospital, he looked like a third world child. And I remember the doctor saying to the nurses, "I know what you're thinking, these folks are good folk, go ahead and work on their son." He was in miserable shape. Our neighbors took him to the Cape along with my wife for 2 weeks, and when he came back, he looked like a different child. But Groveland Water almost killed him at that time, because well number 1 went bad in the late 70s.
Yep.
And since I was involved, I was teaching at the time, I recall hearing that we had more learning disabled children in the late 1970s than any other time in Groveland.
Dick,
So-
I'm gonna have to, we're gonna talk about what's happening in 2025. I know that there was a bad well and, but,
I'm just saying, we haven't had a problem with
Okay.
that because we got a reverse osmosis.
yep,
And we haven't had a drink of Groveland water in probably 30, 40 years. And we've been fine with that.
okay.
So you go right ahead and talk about what's going on in 2025.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know who that was. That might have been the guy.
That was Mark.
Huh?
Mark Prento?
No, it was not.
No?
No.
Oh,
Steve.
Yeah.
oh, all right. Looked like I might should put my glasses on.
I've
Okay.
got trifocals if you need to borrow them.
So, next one. Wanna move it?
I don't know if that was the guy who I talked to on the
If-
phone.
If we have to reverse back
Okay.
into it, I'm okay with that.
You want to start talking about?
Let's get right into it. Ryan's here.
Okay,
He's ready to present.
so you've got a copy of this draft memorandum.
Yep,
It's still in draft form because it's sort of hot off the press here, but,
sure.
obviously, the town's facing a need to either treat its water, or the purpose of this study was to compare that with the option of buying water from Haverhill, which, before Groveland had its supplies, is how the town got its water. So I'll just sort of walk through the memo page by page. The first thing we did was, obviously, we're talking about an interconnection between two water systems, so we would have to see how that would work hydraulically, whether the water would flow the correct way, whether you need a pump station to make it work. Our goal here was to see how you would replace, well, all of Groveland's supplies, which can pump approximately 1,000 gallons a minute. So that's what we were shooting for. How would we get 1,000 gallons a minute from Haverhill's system into Groveland to fill up Groveland's tank? And so we went out, first thing we did was we took the town's hydraulic model, which hadn't been calibrated in about 10 years. So we did some flow tests. We got the hydraulic model calibrated, and that went fine. Haverhill's consultants did the same thing on Haverhill's side to make sure that all the most recent information was being utilized. The interconnection location is at the town line on Salem Street. That's where the historical interconnection had been before it was severed. I don't know, Colin, when was it severed? A decade or more?
I think it was the late 90s when they redid the pipe on Salem Street.
Okay. So we know that Haverhill has a larger size main on that street, so that's kind of why that spot was selected. That's really the only spot that would make sense. So once everybody did their flow tests and model calibrations, we got the results from Haverhill, put those results into Groveland's model, and what we determined was that the water would flow from Haverhill to Groveland under most circumstances, not all circumstances, depending on what's going on in Haverhill. So when they're at a high demand period and their tanks are on the lower end, the pressures in Haverhill could actually be lower than they are in Groveland. So you would have to build a pump station to account for all those scenarios. You wouldn't, this idea of having Haverhill supply Groveland, it's, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. So, most of the time, things working isn't good enough. So you have to build a pump station for those periods of time when the hydraulic conditions aren't optimal. So that's sort of the major conclusion. We also looked at fire flow in Groveland to make sure that if you switched your supply over to that end of town, it wouldn't, reduce fire flows. I'm mostly concerned about this area of town where the current wells are. And what we found is that it actually improves fire flows in town because you have the tank already centrally located that's providing water in the case of a fire. And if you move your supply to the western edge of town, it provides another sort of stabilizing force. So not a huge improvement. It doesn't, it doesn't really make a difference in our recommendations. We just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to make things worse, which it doesn't. So that's good to know. So after we sort of figured out how it would work hydraulically, we looked at water quality. Haverhill is a surface water supply source. Groveland is a groundwater supply source, so there's inherent differences in the two waters. Groveland water is much harder, like about twice as hard as Haverhill's. The pHs that each municipality sets the water out at is approximately the same, not too far off, high sevens, and that's related to corrosion control. Groveland, because the water is so hard, the alkalinity is a lot higher, which means that the pH is more stable, and that's important so that, you know, as water goes out into the system, the pH doesn't drop and start to become a corrosion issue with people's plumbing. Because Haverhill's alkalinity is naturally lower, I think they actually add alkalinity as it goes out of their water treatment plant. And they also, because of, and this is pretty typical of surface water supplies, they add a phosphate to their water, which is a corrosion control chemical. It sort of creates a film on the inside of the distribution system in people's plumbings to prevent lead and copper from leaching out into the water. So what I suspect would happen in this scenario is that if you tried to blend Groveland water with Haverhill water, DEP would make Groveland's water add that orthophosphate, so that what DEP wants in these situations is they want the same corrosion control strategy from all sources of water, so things are consistent across the system. And whereas Haverhill's strategy is a little bit different than Groveland's, there would probably need to be some change to the process in Groveland if you were going to mix the waters. And if you were to flip over to Haverhill 100%, you would just sort of have their corrosion control strategy, and, you know, the strategy in Groveland would have a period of change, and you'd start having orthophosphate in your water. That sort of covers corrosion. As far as you know, the other big difference between surface waters and groundwater supplies in general is disinfection byproducts are more of an issue with surface water plants or surface water supplies. There's, you know, disinfection byproducts are the result of reactions between chlorine and organic precursors. So surface water just has more organic material in it naturally than versus groundwater, which has higher mineral content. So we do see higher disinfection byproducts in surface water. Typically, I took a look at Haverhill's data. They have actually a sampling location for byproducts not far from the interconnection point. And I think, you know, Haverhill just made a major investment, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago in their water treatment plant. I think it was a $42 million construction upgrade. So I think whatever they did there helped them with their DB. If they had a historical problem, they don't have it now, especially not near the interconnection point. What I saw was they were well below their regulatory standards, and it seemed stable throughout the summer and winter. Sometimes you can see DBPs spike during the summer because it's a reaction that's based on temperature. But I don't anticipate that there would be a huge issue there. The other major issue, you know, with switching water supplies like that is just simple aesthetics. I mean, like I said, the water is much softer coming from Haverhill. People would definitely notice a difference in taste and, you know, texture of the water. So I think that's something that everyone would have to be aware of, you know, regardless of whether the water is safe or not. There's just aesthetic differences that people would notice. And surface waters are more prone to changes in aesthetics. Taste and odor can change seasonally. You know, they get their water from Canosa Lake, so surface waters, they change over seasonally, so all the organic material, all the cold water from the bottom flips up top when the surface temperature changes. So you get, you know, treatment operators at surface water plants are always sort of chasing the conditions of the raw water that they're getting. So, you know, there's more opportunity for fluctuations in taste and odor from surface water supplies. Whereas Groveland, the water is coming from 50 feet below the ground, and the quality, aesthetically at least, doesn't really change much seasonally. Couple other, we talked to some of the regulatory authorities about how that would work if the town decided to pursue it. The Water Management, on the Water Management Act side of things, you know, Groveland has, they're allowed to withdraw let's see, 0.41 million gallons per day throughout the year. The town currently uses a little bit less than that. Similar, Haverhill they have a withdrawal authorization of 7.1 MGD, obviously much higher because of the population in Haverhill. In 2023, they used 5.38 million gallons of water. So there's 1.72 MGD in a surplus, theoretical surplus that could be allocated to Groveland. Obviously, Haverhill has to keep in mind that any projected growth or future demands on their end. So, that 1.72 is the number right now, but, it would be up to them whether or not that's enough to, gives them enough buffer to supply Groveland. And those numbers, the authorized withdrawals will probably change, or could possibly change in the next year. The Merrimack River Basin, all the communities that withdraw their water from this basin are up for renewal of their Water Management Act permits in the next year or so. The other major issue that would come up if the town were to pursue being supplied by Haverhill is the Interbasin Transfer Act. So what that really is geared towards is the state doesn't want water from one basin being withdrawn from one basin and discharged to another basin. So in Groveland's case, all the supplies are in the Merrimack River Basin. Same with Haverhill. But because Groveland has a couple of small areas where the water system goes into the Parker River Basin, that's technically right now, that's an interbasin transfer, so the water comes out of the Merrimack and it goes through people's septic systems and ends up in the Parker. Because it's all within one town, Groveland's never had to deal with that issue. It's like an exemption. But once you cross a municipal boundary, it becomes an issue with the Water Resource Commission, which is the regulatory body in charge of interbasin transfer. So even though nothing really would effectively be changing, you're still pulling water out of the Merrimack Basin if you switch to Haverhill like you are now. You're crossing a municipal boundary, you'd have to go through that approval process, which can be pretty lengthy. And what usually kind of the general process is they see interbasin transfer as the last resort. That's what they want. So you have to do an alternatives analysis and you have to sort of prove that you've got no other options other than getting water from, where you're proposing. Potentially, it is a very small amount. I want to say it's like 5 or 10% maybe of Groveland's water system is located in the Parker. So that's helpful. You can get sort of a determination of not insignificance, but yeah, I guess that it is what it's called, determination of insignificance, where if the volumes are low enough, it sort of streamlines the process, but there's really no guarantees until you start the process. And like I said, if I think no matter what, it's a process that's on the order of years, not months. So that's something that would have to be kept in mind, sort of on the forefront of that, if that was the project the town wanted to pursue. Improvements in Groveland to make this work. So I mentioned you would need a pump station. You'd end up having some chemical feed facilities in the pump station to, at a minimum, rechlorinate. If Haverhill had a low chlorine or a low residual event, you'd want the ability to chlorinate the water as it enters Groveland. To make that pump station work without making the pressures extremely high on that area of Salem Street, you need to do some water main upgrades. So there's like 2,800 feet that we figured on Salem Street between the town line and Center Street, and then on Center Street from Salem to Washington, you'd have to replace those mains with 12-inch. Otherwise, the discharge side of that pump station would increase the pressures by 20 to 30 pounds, and the pressures are already high in that part of town. They're already up around 100, so you really don't want, to push the system up to 130 PSI. And then the other recommended improvement that we put in here was to replace the water main or install a new water main on Lawrence Road in Haverhill that would serve as a redundant feed between the two systems in case you had an issue at the pump station. Right now, the way that the town has 3 wells, so there's sort of redundancy built in. If something happens to one of those pumps, you've got 2 others. If you had everything's sort of in one pump station now, if you had an issue at that pump station, you could be in a real bad spot without a plan B. So that's another recommended improvement. Haverhill's consultants, Woodard and Curran, they determined that the water mains on Haverhill side are all adequate. The only thing that they saw that would need to happen is that if you do these model scenarios way out in the future at projected demands, Haverhill wasn't able to keep their tank as full as they'd like to or as they typically do. So at some point in the future, they would need to do a pump upgrade at the water treatment plant to make this all work. So it would, I think we estimated it in like 20 years from now. It's whenever the projected demands are realized in the real world. So I think that covers sort of how it would work. And there's a figure here that shows those water mains I was describing in Groveland and where the pump station would go. We didn't figure out exactly, obviously if you need a pump station, it's got to go somewhere. There's no town land right on the Haverhill-Groveland border. So you'll see when we budgeted, I put a number in there to acquire land, but where that is, I don't know. That would sort of be in the next step if the town went down that road. You're not too far from this town land on Center Street that you could potentially try to utilize, but that's always the difficult piece is you have to find a spot to put these buildings. So that's something to keep in mind. So the final step in this scope of work, once we figured out how it would work and what improvements would need to be made, we put costs to all these different water mains and the water treatment plant and a pump station. And we looked at things from a capital cost perspective and then from a life cycle cost. And I think the capital cost perspective is really not a very good way of looking at it because the big expense in switching over to Haverhill Water would be instead of making your own water for pennies on the dollar, now you're paying the municipal water rate. You're buying water. So the capital cost of the water treatment plant, which right now is at $44.6 million versus the interconnection, which is about $20 million. So water treatment plant's approximately twice as expensive from a capital perspective. But like I said, that's not really the best way to look at. It's not really comparing apples to apples. So we took the we got a bunch of information from the city of Haverhill, and and I think I would be remiss if I didn't state that Haverhill, none of these assumptions about water rates, everything, none of this is something that Haverhill said to us, like, here's what the deal would be. Now, that would all be subject to negotiation, but we've taken historical information and gotten a little bit of guidance from them. As far as the water rates go, we show them as a range. It's to show sort of low and high, and you can sort of expect that the actual numbers would end up somewhere in the middle. I think that's probably the best way to do it. And I have the table in here of all the different assumptions that we made about inflation and loan terms and interest rates and stuff like that. I won't go through all those in detail. but if you go to page 10, sort of summarizing how the overall costs over a 40, we did it over 40 years. That's sort of a typical number for a water treatment plant lifespan. So looking at it that way, if you compare it to, so the water treatment plant's present discounted value is $42 million, which is a little bit counterintuitive because the capital cost is higher than that, but because we assumed that you would get financing from the state at an interest rate of 0.5%, and inflation's 3%, your present discounted value is lower than the capital cost. But, so compared to full supply, no, and actually I have these things reversed on this table, so it's a good thing this is a draft. Partial supply, I gotta read this correctly. Percent differential. So partial supply, the present discounted value is 55 million to 66 million, so 13 to 24 million dollars higher over the course of the 40-year life cycle cost. And full supply was 74 million to 90 million, so approximately double the life cycle cost of the water treatment plant. And I guess I didn't mention, the difference between full supply and partial supply is there's, out of the 3 wells in Groveland, 2 of them have water quality that are definitely going to be above the regulatory standards for PFAS when that hits. Well number 4 is, we don't have a ton of PFAS data because the town hasn't been required to sample. They just are only required to sample the blend of 3 and 4. But I think the little data we do have shows that there's a potential that well 4 could be okay. So we wanted to see, okay, how would it look if that well was maxed out and you just supplied the difference from Haverhill? That would be a blending scenario. But even that, in that scenario, over the life cycle, like I said, it's $13 to $24 million more expensive. And if you look, the 2 last pages are sort of graphs showing how the costs look over 40 years. The first one is 100% Haverhill supply, so you can see that the annual expenses of buying water would be slightly less the first few years, but it doesn't take that long for even the lower end of the estimates, for those annual expenses to exceed what you would pay for the water treatment plant. And the water treatment plant cost is really just the debt payments. That's really, and there are some operational costs that go along with it, but that's the major component. So in that scenario, you'd break even, I'm calling it the payback period, but the total cost of the water treatment plant and the purchasing water would level up or equal each other at 8 years, and then everything past that, the water treatment plant is less expensive. And the next page shows the partial supply scenario. So because you're buying less water, that payback period is extended out to a range of 24 to 31 years, we're estimating. So similar to the full 100% supply scenario, the capital or the operational expenses annually from the water treatment plant would be higher initially until the increased water rates catch up with it year after year. We estimated that Haverhill's water rate would go up 3.75% per year. So eventually, in 10 years or so, the expenses would be equal. And then once you get out to, like I said, 24 years, or 24 to 31 years, the water treatment plant is less expensive till the end of its life cycle. A couple other things I noted about that blending scenario. Like I said, we don't have a ton of data on PFAS levels in that well, so I would, you know, if the town wanted to pursue that further, I would definitely recommend we start sampling that well individually on a regular basis to have some level of confidence that it wouldn't need treatment. But that being said, you know, it's water quality in these wells is not a static thing. You know, just because it's meeting regulations now doesn't mean that it would be in 10 years, 20 years. Obviously, well 3 has pretty high PFOA, so, you know, and it's, what, 400 or 500 feet away, something like that. So wherever, you know, the groundwater in one spot currently doesn't have, you know, it would lead to reason that there's a potential that PFAS could make its way to well number 4. And then if that happened, you'd sort of be in the, you'd have no, if you went down the partial supply route and you didn't build a water treatment plant, you know, and then something happened to well 4, you'd have no recourse but to just buy all your water. Which, as I showed on these graphs, is the most expensive option. So, that was a lot. And hopefully that was clear, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. Does Haverhill have any fluoride in their water?
Yes, they do fluoridate.
Fluoridate their water.
Because Utah is the first and only state that has eliminated fluoride. I tried to get rid of it here in town years ago. I was surprised. It got outvoted dramatically. It's the original component of rat poison.
Well, that's a health department. You have to go with
Well,
them.
it's something that you swish around in your mouth, but it's not something that you swallow. You spit it out. It has value if you spit it out, but I see little to no value when it's swallowed.
Yeah, so, if you'd like to do a citizen, from my understanding, it was voted in at town meeting. It needs to be voted out at town meeting, so if you
Yeah.
want to put that together, we'll stop adding it if you get the votes.
No, I talked to someone from the water department years ago, and they said they'd be happy to not have to put fluoride in, but the town spoke very differently, and I haven't, all 4 of my sons have moved on, so it's been less of a concern. Like I said, we have a reverse osmosis, and our water is relatively safe right now, based on the testing that we've done.
I had a couple questions.
Yes.
When you did your numbers, did you do the operational cost in with the scenarios that you did it?
Yeah, so I have a bulleted list in here about what we included for
Okay.
additional operational costs. So for the treatment plant, it would be, you know, additional power, $20,000 a year, chemical usage, replacement of parts and materials, residuals, disposal to sewer. So you're gonna have, if you have a treatment plant, you're gonna have to backwash these filters, and that, you know, the town pays for sewer to go to Haverhill, filter media replacement, and then an additional water department employee.
Okay. I just want, are people listening to this live? Okay, so, just so that people understand, that's all. And you were saying about the pump station? That's a definite thing that we're gonna have to have? Or is it only when, it would only be if they ever, it's more of a safety thing?
Yeah, so the way, and you know, there's a lot of pump stations that I've seen, and we've designed like this. You can design it so that, you know, 70% of the time, water is just flowing through.
Yep.
And then you would have pressure indicators, so then if the pressure hit a certain level,
It kicks on?
the pump would kick on.
Okay.
So it would be used when it would be needed.
It's more of an emergency situation thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, you know, maybe during the height of the summer, you'd see it kick
Yeah,
on
yeah.
sometimes.
And
but
then-
most of the time, it wouldn't.
On our wells we have now, there's no possible way we spend this money, that any of our wells could go bad. That our wells will be fine to go into the new filtration plant. unless one of them dried up or something, correct? Unless one of them got polluted.
Yeah, so, yeah, the treatment plant, the way it's sort of conceptually designed right now, is to treat for iron and manganese and PFAS.
Okay.
And, you know, the plan right now is to treat PFAS with GAC, which takes out a lot of things, so, like I said, I couldn't say for sure if there's some emerging contaminant that we don't even know about yet that
Yeah.
could come up in 20 years ago, no one had really was talking about PFAS.
Right, I'm just, what I was saying is, so people understand, we have 4 wells or whatever, 3 wells, whatever it
Three
is.
wells.
Let's just say the wells went out. Could the wells ever go out in Groveland, and then the plant's no good? That's all I'm saying. I want people to understand
Could the w-
that the well, that new filtration plant will be, it's okay, put it there, it's fine.
Yeah, I think that's
Unless
an
you have to
unlikely
drill a new
scenario. So, you know, certainly wells get old, just like everything else.
Yep.
Well screens can collapse.
Yep,
And what you do in that scenario is you can do a replacement well, you
we
know.
have one location, correct, left?
That spot we found next to well 1 that had the ton of water.
Yeah, so, you know, and if, you know, I guess really what you're banking on there is that, you know, typically, you know, the well can collapse, but your aquifer is not gonna go away.
No, I get
50
it.
feet down the ground, you know, the aquifer is still gonna be there, so, you know, if you had an issue with a well, not contamination with the, you know, structurally,
Right.
you can be pretty confident that you'd be able to
No,
replace
I'm
it.
just trying to let the people understand that if we put this filtration plant in, that our wells are gonna be fine to take care of it. We have enough wells, capacity. If one of them happens to go, we do have the option to drill another one.
Yep.
So,
And actually, you know, one of the benefits of the treatment plant is that it will actually increase your capacity, because right now, well number 3 can only pump half of what it physically could because of its water quality. It has to be
Yep.
blended with well 4.
Yep.
With the treatment plant, you would have the flexibility to pump well 3 to its capacity, so that's, you
really, you're
know,
putting another well back on.
it's almost like getting another well, another 200 gallons a minute.
Right. And then, the other question I had, when you did the numbers, did you do, like for the plant, did you do it based on, it's gonna take, what, 4 or 5 years to get this thing up and running, and the end day cost? Did you do your numbers based on the end day cost, like?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, we sort of projected, you know, we had a 3% inflation rate built in. You know, for the treatment plant loan, we assumed, like I said, $44.6 million. And that's the last estimate we've provided to DEP on the SRF financing application, which the town was accepted. And that dollar value is assigned to a certain index. They call it the Engineering News Record Index, which is kind of just tracks inflation. But Mass DEP dictated what index we're supposed to use. And I think we haven't quite gotten to that number yet in prices, but I would say sometime like mid-summer of this year is when you'll hit that index that the number is based on.
So you don't see the 44 million, by the time we get done, growing a huge amount? I know you're not the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say take that number and, you know.
10%?
If construction was awarded, say, next year, you know, whatever they think inflation will be between now and then, so another 2 or 3% or something like
Yeah, so
that.
it's not like
Where's that
huge,
money gonna come from?
not huge.
That would be a loan that the town would have to take out.
Okay, I'm good.
I might have missed it, if this well, is it gonna solve this treatment plant, does it solve all the PFAS problems? So would I be wasting my money on a $9,000 filtration system for my house now, and if it's gonna be obsolete in 5, you see what I'm saying?
I would think,
Do I wait for the treatment plant, or do I just treat my water like everybody else in town?
Well-
I'm new, I've been here a year, so
yeah, I would say, you know, PFAS, I think it's pretty safe to say that when it leaves the plant, it will be non-detect, and PFAS doesn't make its way into the water, you know, once it reaches the distribution system, so, I don't think there'd be any need to treat, you know,
Yeah, I mean, we're being forced to build this because of PFAS.
yeah.
What is that?
They call it the forever chemical. For a long time, manufacturers put it in everything. It's probably in your coat you're wearing, it's in your food you eat.
That's-
2% of the PFAS in your body comes from the water, the rest of it comes from whatever else you're doing. But
Yeah,
it's in,
Teflon was a big one.
yeah, it was in like nonstick pans, it's in like Gore-Tex raincoats.
Firefighting foam is the other big contributor. We've seen wells near firefighting academies where, you know, the impending limit on some of these chemicals is 4 parts per trillion, which is amazingly low. And we've seen it, you know, in towns in the state near, like I said, near a point source, you know, hundreds parts per trillion. So, you know, orders of magnitude above what the limits are. And so, you know, those particular municipalities have already dealt with this because they were, you know, it was a sort of an immediate health issue recognized.
So I basically be wasting my money getting a filter for the house at this point, or waiting out the plant.
Yeah, I mean, if I was gonna put a year on this plant being online, call it 2029.
Right,
So I guess for the next 3 years, it wouldn't be a waste of money.
right. And it'll take care of the brown, like the sediment discoloration, all that stuff, huh?
Yep, so in order for the PFAS filters to work, there has to be the water quality has to be at a certain place. And the iron and manganese levels in the town's water now have to be reduced in order for the PFAS removal to work.
But that being said, on our end,
Yeah, so we've been saying, you know, we don't want the false sense of security that like as soon as this thing goes online, it's not gonna be a light switch.
Right, exactly.
You know,
pipes are old in the
there's
roads.
100-year-old pipes that have 100 years worth of minerals in them.
So buy the filter.
You know, that's a personal choice, you know, if everyone's, we can't.
No, I hear
But we don't want anyone to think that as soon as this thing goes online, that it's not gonna be a light switch.
you. Right.
To get rid of the dirty water, the type,
Right.
rusty water.
Those pipes that have 100 years worth of minerals built up, we're gonna, as soon as we turn the plant on, if that's what we do, those pipes will stop continually getting iron and manganese, but there's still 100 years of it in there that needs to come out and/or systematically the pipes be replaced, which is kind of part 2 that's happening at the same time.
Like the pipes that lead into the homes,
The pipes in the streets.
the streets, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So there's 2 things that need to happen at the same time. We either need to buy it from Haverhill or build a plant, and we need to replace the pipes in town. Both of those things will be happening concurrently.
Which is why you're paying a capital fee.
Yeah,
So the
on your
capital
bill, there's a
fees.
$25 capital fee. That money is set aside specifically for water main replacement.
So 2 very separate things, but at the same time, both a problem. Not great.
And the other thing is so that people out there understand that I've heard a lot of people saying, well, if I have a well, why would I have to pay for it? So
They don't. So on the
That's what I'm
phone,
saying.
I mentioned how we don't get any of your tax money.
Right.
So, you know, if you've lived here for a year, you probably paid us like $800 in water. That $800 is all we get from you to fix the water system. And there's only 2,000 customers in town
Okay.
that pay for water.
Everybody else is on a well.
Everyone else has a well.
But to be clear, their well water and our well water
Comes from the same place.
same place. So, to be very clear, I am neighbors with my mother. She has her own personal well. I'm on town water. Our water is the same. It looks the same. It smells the same. It tastes the same. It tests the same. It doesn't matter that hers is private and she maintains it versus I buy it. It's exactly the same.
The straw in her mother's yard goes into the ground 200 yards down the street from where our municipal well is, so.
It doesn't.
what I was saying, Colin, is a lot of people that have wells do not have to pay for the filtration plant.
No, they
Yeah,
don't.
so only
That's why I
water
just wanna make sure
customers will
everyone
be paying
here
for this.
Listens to that, it's gonna be the people that have town water will be paying for the filtration system, not the people that have wells. Because that's a lot of going on out there right now.
Well, yeah, no tax dollars, none, 0.
Oh, yeah, that's either, no matter what, that's a
No matter what.
guarantee.
Last week it was the trash, this week it's the water. and-
Well, in fairness, the water's been a while.
Yeah, I mean,
The trash
you're,
just
you're,
taking
a-
the
you're a
lead.
prime example, right? From 1970 whatever. It's been a problem since then.
1970s, I'm just glad that we got a reverse osmosis. Now, the guy who changes my 4 filters, he said, do you want to see what everybody else in town is drinking? And it was really gross looking, once he took the cap off the
Yep.
filters.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because we do zero filtration,
Correct.
none whatsoever.
Yeah,
And you have the top of the line, reverse osmosis is the top of the line filtration that you can do, so.
yeah, it went down to 2 to 3 parts per million once we put the reverse osmosis in.
So, you know, you're probably only one of a handful of people in town that has reverse osmosis in their house. Most people, if they have filtration, it's just a cartridge filter.
Yeah,
But that doesn't remove the same stuff as RO does, so.
It just cleans the color of the
Yeah.
water.
No, Ryan, this was very thorough. I appreciate you turning around in a very short time frame. Super helpful, really, it was. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, so, you know, I stopped short of saying this is what you should do. I mean, it's not my water system, it's not, you know.
But you could also give your opinion and say this is what you should do, with your personal opinion.
Yeah, well,
I think you've said it anyway, you pretty much said that you think the filtration is the way to go.
I mean, the life cycle cost is the lowest, so
Right.
to me, that,
Well, that's the
That's the
reason
way
why
to
we
go.
were having the option of Havel versus the filtration plant, so.
and, you know, one thing I will point out when you look at these graphs is, you know, the water treatment plant payment or the expenses, it's sort of a flat line, so, I mean, like I said, your major cost is repayment of a debt on a large loan, but that number is not gonna change. You can see what those payments are for the length of the loan, so it's a lot easier to plan around things like that. You sort of control your own destiny, and when you buy water, like I said, we estimated what the rates would be buying water from Haverhill. Nobody knows what the actual number would be, so, you know, there's a lot more variability, and, you know, every year would sort of be like, you know, how much of our rate's gonna go up this year, because you don't know what you are gonna have to pay to buy your water.
It would have to be negotiated out in a long time. If it was worth it, you couldn't do it year to year, it wouldn't be worth it.
No, you'd have
It would have to be, it would have
Similar
to
to
be
sewer.
put out 20 years.
Right, yeah, and the town, obviously, you do that with sewer now, there's
Yeah.
a municipal agreement, but, yeah,
And then
there's,
20 years, then what does it look like, right?
right,
So-
it does get
But if you were
renegotiated
looking at, if
periodically.
you're looking at a budgeting aspect, the filtration plant's better here, because when they do their budget, they can say, okay, every year it's gonna cost this down the road for 20, 30 years, whatever it is. And even though if we negotiate with Havel for a water number, in 20 or 15 years, whatever we negotiate, they could rob us at that point. So, I mean,
Right,
I just hope all the town people realize, and they probably won't, but unfortunately, not everyone watches TV, but, once this hits their pocketbook, they're not gonna be happy about it, but what are you gonna do? It's something that we're being mandated to do, and we have to do it, so.
yeah, and I think, you know, one of the first steps that the town should take, well, you know, once a path is chosen, is do a rate study. You know, this is a big expense that you know is coming, and, you know, let the ratepayers know, like, what the impacts are gonna be, well before they hit. And I think that's, you know, reasonable to be able to do that, you know, years in it, you know, well over a year in advance of when the rates actually get.
And we're working on trying to get grants and low-interest money anyway, aren't we already?
Yeah, so the town,
Well, and we're already in that lawsuit, so.
No, but I'm saying, is there any grants out there to help offset the plant?
so,
Or
yeah,
anything?
Groveland would be, so the Groveland's been accepted into the SRF loan program through the
Yep.
first application. It's not the full cost yet, they awarded $15 million out of the 44. And so every year, this is new, until this past year, once you were awarded a project, you were guaranteed that you were gonna be financed through SRF for the length, you know, the whole entire project. Now you have to go back every year
Right.
and get it in chunks, which is just a function of the amount of money that program has right now. So, you know, PFAS mitigation projects are eligible for 0% financing. So, you know, that's worth that versus 5% on a $44 million loan is
Huge.
an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know, in the other, and that's only the part of the project that is related directly to PFAS mitigation. So you notice in this report, I called it 0.5% instead of 0%.
Right.
Because, you know, if you're gonna, if you do it, you'll end up breaking out the iron and manganese filters as a separate cost and paying 2% on that cost because it's not directly related to PFAS mitigation. So, you know, it'll end up at some number a little bit higher than 0.
Sure.
But the other thing is Groveland is eligible for some loan forgiveness. And, you know, I think I estimated it would be $1 million in this, which, based on previous years, percentage-wise, is what it would be. So, no guarantees, but I think that's a reasonable assumption. So, I mean, it's 1 million out of 44, but it's still $1 million.
Still $1 million.
Better than 0.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, this is, again, really great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks,
yep,
Ryan.
thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any specific questions?
Our meeting's not over. Right,
Just to
right.
be
just-
clear, the 2,000 water customers, right? Our bill would go up after for the treatment plant, right?
Correct.
Does that mean the people with the private wells get the treated water for free?
No.
No.
Private well is like
No.
you would have a well in your backyard.
Yeah,
So their water's still gonna be untreated?
yes,
Correct.
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Like, any idea how much the bill would go up, roughly? No clue.
I mean, we can figure it out, but we don't even know what we're gonna do yet, so we
Right.
can't,
All right, just curious.
It's going up, Steve.
yeah.
I bet you double.
Yeah,
I bet you double.
Ooh.
and honestly, either way.
It's only 2,000 customers, think about it.
Either way we go, it's probably that.
When I first moved here, $500 paid for my mortgage and taxes. My house is paid for.
Dick, you're killing me.
I now spend $7,200.
I get it.
And I'm one of the lucky ones, because I'll bet you if we had a crowd of people in here, most of them are spending 10 grand and more
Yeah.
on taxes.
Sure.
I am.
And then we just bought Strawberry Fields a few years ago, and I remember saying that this was gonna come back and bite us in the butt, and it has. It was, Strawberry Fields was assessed for 900,000, and we bought it for a little over 3 million. Wouldn't that be nice as a starter for whatever, we decide to do?
We don't have it, so.
Yeah,
Can't worry about
a million is still a million, I agree with you.
Yes.
And thank you for the bad news.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about it for a few years now.
Yeah, I remember asking you in a town meeting, are we gonna get a system? And you, as soon as I heard the word millions, and millions rhymes with billions, after a while, I decided not to ask that question anymore. So
Side-
is the water unsafe at this point?
We meet current regulations.
Okay.
It's tested regularly.
Yeah, so basically what happened was Massachusetts had a regulation for PFAS. We comply with that. The feds adopted a regulation that is a fifth of what Massachusetts was. And Massachusetts has to adopt the federal regulation. Once that happens, we will no longer comply. We have until 2029 to be in compliance.
Okay. I'd just like to remind us that grants is our money that we have to beg for.
Yep.
That's not a stash of money that's in somebody's drawer down at the State House. That's our money, and you have to have some people that really know what they're doing when they write a grant. In fact, I remember reading, there's a course at the University of New Hampshire on how to write grants. It's a very sophisticated form, and if you mess it up, you don't get the grant.
Yep. So, we're,
Something else to put on my prayer list, I guess.
side question for you. Did you figure out who left you the case of water with the
Yeah.
note?
Thank,
It wasn't us.
It was not us.
It was not us.
No, I was
No.
actually horrified when he called me, and I was like, I would never do that to somebody. I am appalled.
no idea.
No, No one that works for us on the board,
That
nothing.
wasn't you guys?
No. We would not do
Well,
that.
the news just
And there's-
said we shouldn't be drinking water.
And there's
out of
very few
plastic
people in this
bottles.
meeting. Didn't the note tell you to come to the water meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we didn't do it.
it was not us.
And it wasn't me.
So you get water?
That's creepy.
It, very.
That's why I
you have a
asked
ring
everyone
camera?
that worked for us, and it wasn't us.
Do you have a ring camera?
Yeah, but they.
Check it out.
They put it on the other, they put it away from the camera.
She couldn't,
But you can't see him putting it there?
No,
is it a neighbor?
no idea,
I would start there. That's my thought. But it is,
right?
I personally thought that was very strange. So
it
Right,
was,
But how did they know I was talking to you guys?
that's,
It
that's,
sounds like a joke.
it does. It's,
Yeah.
I had no idea until he called me and I went, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, right?
I was like, that's not very friendly. No,
but, yeah, so
unless
there's
someone,
something to think
maybe
about.
someone else near you has a problem and they just felt like you should come because you're new. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know.
Talk to neighbors.
Yeah, just start knocking on doors.
Yeah.
But once you figure it out, can you let us know? Because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm like genuinely
I
curious
really
at this
thought
point.
it was you guys.
No? No. Not any one of us. No.
He was all excited about the
A
water.
new resident.
Jamie might drink the water, like brown water in front of you, but he's not gonna leave you a case of water.
But,
That's,
All right.
but yeah, I mean, you made a special line on the agenda, so
You
if you
did.
have any other questions, we'd be glad to ask you.
it is.
Boy,
With a case of water that's on the agenda.
I thought it was those guys.
No,
Because I had talked to you that day.
no, no.
Just happened to be coincidence. That's-
Someone's listening to you.
Yeah, it's really,
That's concerning.
that's messed up.
Sorry.
All right, well,
Yeah, no, I was under the impression it was you.
No.
But wasn't it signed by the water department?
Yeah,
got imposters.
yeah. So,
Yeah, no.
it's a Groveland sewer, water and sewer.
It said that
Yeah. On the card,
on the card?
yeah.
What kind of card was it?
Like a smiley face card,
Oh, that's weird.
yeah.
Hmm.
Handwritten, please come to the water meeting on March 18th.
Who did you talk to about your
Trying to
complaint?
solve this problem.
I spoke to Colin, I think, right?
Yeah.
And whoever else picked up the phone. Yeah, it was, okay.
One of my guys backed into a guy's car in Georgetown, and I said to him, well, how do you know it was my truck? Well, I know. I said, well, there's contractors there, blah, blah. I said, do me a favor, do you have a Ring camera? Go to your Ring camera. And he was able to go in with a Ring camera, out with a Ring camera. It was my truck that backed into him. He goes, you were very honest, you know? I said, well, that's the way to do it. If you have a Ring camera.
Right.
This was like from me to that doorway, and he got it.
Another look at it.
You can really pick up a lot of things in those Ring cameras.
None of us.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't even know where you live, so I couldn't even go to your house if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Colin didn't even tell me your address. Super secret.
All right, well,
Well, if you have more questions, you are welcome at our meeting, or you can always call Colin.
Yeah.
We're here.
Now I gotta figure out, now I gotta do a little investigating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know whether they were being kind or just downright nasty.
Yeah, messing with me.
Yeah.
Right, I love in the Groveland.
yeah.
Yeah, here's some clean water, I don't,
I don't know.
right? Like,
Yeah.
well, I guess it was, now that you say it, it was a little odd, that why would you guys do that, yeah?
Right, it's almost, it looks bad for us.
Yeah, right, I get, yeah.
Where we will continue to tell you that our water meets all the regulations and you can drink it. And if there was an issue that you had to boil it first, you would know.
so,
That's so weird.
I know.
um,
Warrant articles?
yep, so warrant articles for town meeting. We've already, you guys already like preliminarily
Yep.
approved all of them?
Yep.
Couple things that we need to decide on. We had a previous warrant article that was for $600,000 from when we were trying to drill a new well and looking for new sources. Now that that's not an option anymore because all the wells that we drilled had just as much stuff in them as we already have. We have a remaining amount of money that was allocated for that project. We have two options. We can either have a warrant article at town meeting to reauthorize that money to go towards something else, such as, the water main projects that we're trying to do, or, the engineering for whatever we're gonna do.
New pipes.
Yeah, it could, yes.
I say reallocate it.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming, guys.
Thank you.
I say reallocate it.
Okay,
I understand.
I'm curious.
Reallocate it.
May
So,
the force be with you.
All right,
thanks
be
for
good.
coming, Dick.
Too.
Yeah,
So we could reallocate it. My personal thought process is if we reallocated it and combined it with that 1 million we're getting from the feds,
Yep.
perfect.
it allows us to do more.
Yep, perfect.
So if you could make a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion to reallocate the money that was set at town meeting to go with the $1 million grant, whatever we got from the state, to do a bigger project.
Okay.
Second. All in favor?
All right,
Done.
that will clean that up.
Okay.
And then we'll need, we're gonna have to temporarily borrow the money for the engineering for whichever option gets chosen. Basically, either option is gonna be about 3.5 million for the engineering. So we need,
To make a warrant article.
we need a warrant article to borrow 3.5 million for engineering, design, and permitting.
Okay. I'll make a motion to have a warrant article for 3.5 million for engineering, to borrow that money.
But we have to state what it goes to, don't we?
We do
So,
not,
You don't?
but do you want to vote that to be clear and find?
I've already made my mind up. I mean,
Okay.
as long as this paper that's sitting in front of me, I'll be well gone before, but as long as this paper's here, people in the town can read it and understand it, that's all I care, that's all I ask for. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes out to that it doesn't make sense buying money from, buying water from Haverhill. It's more money,
So.
so, I'm fine.
I'm
So just,
gonna remove my motion.
yeah.
I'm gonna go back to this. Terry had sent this email. Did you get a chance to read this? Okay. So are you fine if we vote on that to say, I'll make a motion that the board, including with Terry's email where he supports moving forward with a water treatment facility, that we will vote on that and continue down that path?
Yeah, the only thing I would say, just as a discussion,
Yep.
do we,
Well, you have to second it so we can discuss it.
I know,
Oh,
but I'm just trying to
no,
talk.
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
Do we owe the people, the 2,000 customers that we have, the ability to have and know somehow, tell them what we're doing? I know we have the right to vote it in, don't get me
Yep.
wrong,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
yeah, yep.
I know, but I'm saying, we voted in, they go to town meeting, and then they're gonna go, what did these guys do?
so
What'd they do?
that mailer that we had talked about,
Yeah,
we put it together, it's in the works of going out to people now.
yep,
Unfortunately, we had to do that before we had this engineering report. But we can certainly,
all we gotta do is go on the bills and just put something saying that.
yeah,
we're-
we can we can, once this, so this is just a draft, so he'll
No, I
go.
understand,
But we can publish this, we can
I
do a
think we
press
should.
release about it,
I think
Right.
we should. Yeah,
right,
we should.
I just think
just getting the information out there of why.
I'm telling you, as soon as this goes to town meeting, I hope, I'm not standing there, 'cause I won't be, but it's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy for people to take, and it's gonna be a lot of money, and, I mean, look what they're talking about now, another increase here, another increase there, you know what I mean? It's just, people are not, they're gonna come out of their seats. So I think the sooner we break it to them, and we gotta show them, we did the avenue, we spent the money, we looked at Haverhill, we looked at keeping our own plant, it worked out cheaper for our plant. You wanna come take the packet, take the packet. I mean, they gotta know it. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know they're gonna come in.
Oh, yeah, well, I think,
And to have a forum on it, look how many people come.
yeah, and,
You know what I mean?
I
They
mean,
don't-
arguably, this is the most
They don't.
exposure we've gotten.
They don't come.
Three people came.
I think what would happen if you went and put on the water bill or a letter, like you said, and said that we've made the decision, we're going with a filtration plant. If you wanna call and come in and whatever, have a forum later, whatever, just let people know this is the route we went. We We weighed out the situation with Haverhill, it worked out the plant's cheaper, and this is the way we went.
Well, that's my thought, is maybe we vote on it, there's a decision, the next meeting, we schedule it, we say that there's a public forum.
Whatever.
We leave the first part of the meeting, publicize it, here's this information,
Fine with me.
and see what happens,
We
right?
can put it on, we are doing bills right now too, so we could add something in that little bottom box.
And we'll have a meeting before town meeting, so there's time.
I just think you gotta let the people know
Yeah.
it's gonna get costly. But, I mean, I'll vote for it tonight. I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's cheaper to have our own plant or whatever. I mean, I don't think that they're hardcore numbers, but I mean, the numbers in front of me are good enough to understand that it's gonna be cheaper for a filtration plant.
Agreed. So I'll go back
Mm-hmm.
and make my motion. I'll make a motion that, as a board, we're going to move forward with a water treatment facility in-house.
Enough, you?
What?
I didn't get it. I didn't get the last piece of it. What'd you say?
Oh, a water treatment facility in-house.
Okay. Second.
Okay.
I say all.
Discussion?
Okay.
Any discussion? No?
The only thing is, like I said, I really would like to see something,
No, I
some
think we
kind
have
of
to.
more PR
Yep.
with the town, because I think it's gonna become a very, very
Oh, yeah, I mean,
heated,
it's-
heated subject.
It has
And
to.
another thing that he was talking about, and I didn't wanna talk too much, because when they did the high school, when I sat on the second board, you don't feel that impact right away. You don't. It comes in, so the first year, it will be so much, then the next year, so much, and then as the thing's getting built and getting paid for, so you won't feel the actual real big number until it's completely done, the final bill's
Right.
paid. It's gonna creep up, creep up, creep up. He didn't say that, and I was gonna say it, but I'm like, I'll just shut my mouth.
But I think Ryan had a good point of like, you need to prepare for that and then present that, and you should be able to present a number a year in advance so people are aware that this is what it's going to impact them.
No, I agree, but I'm saying, you know how we were saying maybe the water bill would be double? It won't be double right away.
Yeah, no, it would
No, but that's what he was
incrementally
saying.
go up.
But that's what he was saying, he's like, you could tell people that, of
Yeah.
like, hey, this year, this is what it's gonna
Right,
look like this year.
right, yeah.
Because, and he'll do that, he'll do a study after the fact and say, this is what it needs to be to make that
Once we
work.
get the final numbers, yeah,
Yes,
right.
yeah. So we can do that, and we should do that.
Yeah, that's on my list of discussions.
I don't doubt that. Okay, so
Okay.
all in favor? Great. And then go back to, so I'll make a motion to put 3.5 million for the,
Engineering,
Engineering.
design, permitting of a water treatment
of a
facility.
water treatment facility.
We have to borrow it though somewhere, right?
Yep.
Do you know where
So,
it's being borrowed from?
yep, so, part of that, the state revolving
Wait.
fund,
You have to second it so we can talk about it.
Second,
Thank you. Now
Okay.
we can talk about it.
all right, so part of the state revolving fund process is we need to temporarily borrow the money in a traditional fashion through the treasurer's office until the state revolving process,
right.
until we're
It's in.
fully into the state
Yeah.
and then it's reimbursed.
Right,
And
right.
becomes part of the state revolving
Not
fund.
costing this project more money, we're just getting from here to there.
Yeah, so we're doing
Once we
it,
get there, we'll get our money back.
yeah, it's a temporary borrowing.
Yeah, okay.
And then it gets
All right.
rolled in. So to segue into that, we need an article, a warrant article that allows us to enter into the state revolving fund.
So you need a second motion?
So I need another motion.
Let's vote on this one first.
Okay, sorry.
All in favor? Aye, okay.
All right, that's done.
Next one.
So I guess I need a motion from you guys to, the wording for this motion has to be very specific. I don't know what the wording is. We have to get it from bond council.
Oh, okay.
So we can vote on it next time?
But if you just vote on a warrant article that will authorize us to enter into the state revolving fund.
I'll
And-
make a motion that Colin figures out a appropriate motion to allow us into the state revolving fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, so basically, if we or we're in the state revolving fund. If we're in it, but we don't have that motion, then we can't use the money.
Right, I got it.
Got it.
Um,
Okay.
Then the other warrant articles you already approved, it's for the, like the emergency fund transfer stuff, the motor controller for the sewer station.
Yep.
sucking out and cleaning the, water towers. Those ones you already authorized. And then the last two are just the budgets, which have already been submitted.
Great.
So warrant articles are taken care of.
Okay.
All right, so to segue again into that borrowing of the 3.5 million for the engineering. That will be a temporary borrowing initially, which it's called a BAN, a bond anticipation note, which means we only pay interest, and we can do that for up to 3 years. In this case, it will probably only be one until we're fully rolled into the state revolving fund. But to pay that interest, we're gonna need to up the budget by about 260,000 to cover the interest and the fees of origination. So I talked to Ellen, I'm adding a budgetary line item to pay for that.
So it's gonna make, already, it's gonna make their water bills more.
So right now, we did, a zero, our budget was level funded.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
So with this, basically, I'll add it to the budget, and then we'll figure out what that will do to the rates, and then we'll have to hold a rate hearing
Yep.
before July, because we have to change the rate before we start billing people for that new amount of water for, but just a heads up that will be kind of like,
So to go back to Bill's point, the minute that we can figure out what that rate is, we should include that in that PR information, so they're aware that
Yeah.
it will change starting now.
Yeah, 'cause then they'll say, oh, you're hiding something, or,
Nope, I agree, no. So whatever we can do to make sure that that's in there along with all this other information as well.
yeah. Okay. The next item is the website. So, I guess, long story short, the company who did the town's website and PR stuff, the town's moving away from. I have a relative who owns the company, so I had to,
step aside.
I had to tell it, you guys need to either say, yes, we're gonna keep moving with that company, or change directions.
And the town is not going with anyone, correct?
I believe that, in-house, they're taking over PR,
Got it.
and the website is gonna be Annie doing it with some other company that's gonna host it, I think. I'm not sure the terminology.
How much does it cost a year to do it?
So ours is like $4,700 for the PR and for the website
For a year?
for the year.
How often do we use it?
I mean, that would be who does all of our press releases and maintains our websites for posting that little banner for
The meeting.
the meetings. I think,
Like monthly, do we,
I mean, we can do as many as we want. For a while, we were doing a lot of them. But it's up to you guys, because I do have the family member.
I know.
But,
what I'm saying, Sarah, is it,
Yep.
are we using for the 4,700, are we getting $4,700 worth of PR?
So, but I also think it comes back to is, what are we doing? I mean, if we don't ask them.
I know.
So I think
Right.
if we're gonna spend the money, we need to utilize it. And we need to say, we need to do something once a month.
So that being said, we're going into this whole situation with this new filtration plant.
Yep,
Vote yes, and then have them, whoever,
yep.
start doing it,
yeah, we can launch like a whole campaign
Right.
for,
for them.
Yeah, and maybe, yeah. And
So I'll make a motion to stay with that firm.
okay.
Second,
All
All
in
in
favor?
yeah, I think we should do
And then
something.
going,
And maybe even like, there's something we can add to the website that says, hey, this is the project timeline, this is where we are,
well, I
this is where
think
we've
that,
been.
I think that company could, if we're paying them the money, let them start getting
that's what
what
I'm
we
saying.
need to be set out.
But they could do stuff like that. and
Yeah,
have-
let them get it out.
Yeah,
Let them
agreed.
find a way of getting it out. That's what we're
100%.
paying them for.
Yep,
All right, so, yeah, departmental paperwork stuff. So, a couple things. First thing is our copier lease is up. And I looked into, options that were out there for new copiers. And I found one that is less money that will give us more abilities. So I'd like to move forward with a Canon machine, which will save us about $70 a month, but it will also give us the ability for the machine to fold our bills for us, whereas now it doesn't.
All right, okay, that's good. I'm good with
So-
it. I'm good with it.
Make a motion to move forward with Canon copier.
I'll second.
All in favor?
The next thing is, if you recall, we had set aside money for the SCADA project, which is like the computers that
Yep.
run everything. Part of that is everything talks over radio frequency. The current radio receivers and transceivers that we have are, one, not made anymore, so when we need to replace them, we can't. And two, we've been having a lot of interference issues based on our frequency. So this is a quote to replace all of our radios, which will.
Like in the truck radios?
No, so at each well, like the wells have.
Okay, radios.
Yeah, it's not like an internet cable, it's a radio frequency that
Yeah.
sends the data. So with this upgrade, it will give us stuff that doesn't have interference with whatever is.
And it wasn't part of the SCADA program when they did it?
It was originally going to be, but because we thought we were gonna be doing this treatment plant, we pumped the brakes on it so that we weren't doing it now and doing it in 5 years.
What kind of money is it?
So it's 32 grand. We have the money in that SCADA line.
Okay.
And how much did we set aside?
Oh, it was like 550,000, and we've only used like 50,000 of it.
Okay.
But this would have to be done when we build the plant anyway, because
Okay.
we can't buy new radios.
So you're making motions, think another one.
Make a motion to move forward with
You wanna
a
sign?
SCADA
Oh, sorry.
project.
I second it and raise my hand.
All in favor? Good. Do you want Bill to sign this too? Do you need?
It just needs one,
Okay.
and the current ones, they're getting interference from somewhere, and the radio people and us can't figure out where, but it starts sending out alarms at like 11 o'clock at night, and it calls them like 20 times overnight.
Oh, no,
It's,
that's not good.
no.
Okay.
It was a problem about 10 years ago when I started, and it miraculously like went away,
And now it's.
and now it's back.
Got it.
But, other than that, we got that signed. I
No, I
think
did not.
Rebecca has to sign this one, I believe.
Okay,
But,
okay. Anything else?
anyone have any old or
No.
unfinished business?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
make a motion at 6:19 to end the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Done.
Thank you very much, Bill, for coming.
You're welcome.
I know it probably wasn't as exciting as pulling tree stumps out of the ground.